Hey guys, it's Dave here from Creative Path Films, and in today's video I'm going to be showing you how to balance not just one, but two different types of gimbals. So I have two different types of gimbals in front of me here today. On the right, I have the DJI Osmo Mobile, which has recently been shortened in the newer models to just OM. And on the left, I have the DJI RS2, which is a much bigger type of gimbal. Both of these gimbals share similar principles. It's just that the Osmo Mobile is designed for mobile phones, and the RS2 is designed from anything from a mirrorless camera up to a small cinema camera. Time codes for each model are in the description, so you can click ahead if you'd like to. All right, so first we're going to start with the Osmo Mobile. Now, this is how the gimbal would look when you get it out of the box. Now, every gimbal operates on the same principle. It has three brushless motors that help to counteract any bumps and shakes that you get from handheld camera work. Now, each of those motors are positioned here, here, and here. So we have the pan motor, the tilt motor, and the roll motor. So on the Osmo Mobile, we can balance two of those positions. So we want to make sure that this phone is perfectly balanced inside the gimbal. So what we're going to do is I'm just going to add in our phone. So we do that by just sliding it into place like so. And as you can see, the phone is too right heavy. It's not perfectly balanced at this point. And the problem with that is that's going to put a lot of strain on this motor. So we want to make sure that that's balanced out. So how you do that is you undo, there's a knob here that we're going to loosen, and then we're going to extend this arm. So we're going to extend that out. So now I've gone too far the other way. So let's go back a little bit further, and there we go. Now you can see that the phone is now fairly well balanced on the roll axis. So now that we've got that axis balanced, now we need to have a look at our tilt axis. So as you can see here, when I adjust the phone, it just flops to the bottom. So it's quite bottom heavy at the moment. So for this axis, as you can see here, it's got a spring loaded clamp. So we can just slide the position of the phone up or down. And you want to do that until it's not flopping to either side, until I'm just physically pushing these two springs. See that, how it holds its position? That's what we want. So as you can see, that is now well balanced. It's sitting nice and level on the roll axis, and when you tilt it, you can see that the phone now holds its position. So it's nice and balanced on the tilt axis as well. So now when we turn on the gimbal, you'll see that you don't get any of those nasty motor noises coming from any of the motors. It's nice and smooth, and it's doing its job properly. So that is how you balance the Osmo Mobile or OM style of gimbals from DJI. So one thing that I wanted to add while we're talking about the Osmo Mobiles is that if you want to add a microphone and record clean audio from your phone, such as this one here, which is the Rode SmartLav Plus. So this is a small lapel microphone that's designed for mobiles. If you wanted to add something like that, you're going to need, of course, your audio adapter, your Lightning or USB-C, depending on your phone, to 3.5mm adapter. Now, the Lightning port on this particular phone is here, where it sandwiches up against the edge of the gimbal. So really, we don't have much choice. What we have to do is we have to slide the phone out, turn this around so that you can see. What we need to do is plug this in, and then we need to sandwich that in as best we can, trying not to, of course, damage the adapter. Now, downside to that, as you can now see, is it's completely off balance. So we need to extend this arm out as far as we can, but even in doing that, it's still heavily weighted this way. And the same thing's gonna happen. Let's say you have a moment case and you wanna add, say, a moment lens, maybe a wide angle lens or an anamorphic lens or something like that. You're gonna have the same problem. You're gonna have a phone that's very heavily weighted to one side. And in those instances, the best thing to do is to get a small universal gimbal counterweight. And what it does is it clamps onto the side of the gimbal arm, and that will help to balance it out again. Now, links to both of these gimbals and all the accessories that we've mentioned so far will be down in the description if you're looking to pick one up for yourself. Now, this video isn't sponsored by DJI or any other gimbal manufacturer. We purchased both of these gimbals ourselves for our own productions, but those links will be affiliate links and will earn a small commission at no cost to you that helps support this channel if you decide to make a purchase. So we'd really appreciate that. Now we're going to move on to the larger version, the DJI RS2. And the process here is going to be the same process that you'd use for any other single-handed gimbal, just like this one. You have the same 3 brushless motors. So you have the pan motor, you have the roll motor, and you have the tilt motor. And each of those motors needs to be balanced independently. Now, one of the features about the RS2 that I absolutely love is there are actually small motor locks, so you can lock and unlock each axis and balance them independently of one another. But because a lot of the other gimbals out there don't have this feature, I'm gonna be showing you how to balance this gimbal without using the locks. Now, the first thing that you wanna make sure you've done before you go to balance your gimbal is you want to make sure that your camera is completely set up the way you want it. So make sure that you've already put in your SD cards and your batteries, that you've got the lens that you wanna use, you have things like filters and microphones attached if you want to use them. Because adding any of these small things can dramatically change the balance of the gimbal. Even something as simple as flipping out the LCD screen can have quite an impact. So we want to make sure that it's completely ready to go before we start balancing. Now, the RS2 is a little bit unique in that it has 2 plates. So it has an Arca Swiss plate here, as well as a Manfrotto plate just here. So you can actually remove it like this. Once you've got it balanced, that's really convenient, and you've got the plate that's attached to the bottom of the camera. But for other styles of gimbal, they usually just use the one long plate. So most models will have a plate just like this. And what you'll do is you'll slide it on from the front of the gimbal. Now, I always like to start balancing my gimbals using the tilt axis. So what that means is you want to get this into position so that the camera is neither front heavy, so it's not tilting forward, nor back heavy, so it's not tilting towards the back. So that's fairly well level there. Now, there's actually 2 areas that you need to balance on the tilt axis. You've got the front and back, which we've just done, and you've also got this arm here, the up and down. Now, if we just lock this for a second, just to make it clearer, if we have it too bottom heavy, it's gonna drop like a stone and pendulum like that. Whereas if I go too far and slide it all the way up here, and it's too top heavy, the whole thing is going to want to invert like so. So you want it somewhere in the middle so that when you position it, a little bottom heavy, you want it to not move. So you want it to be able to sit perfectly in position. Okay. It's pretty good. Little bottom heavy. Okay, so there you go. That is now perfectly balanced on that axis. You can see that you put the camera at an angle and it just sits in position. That's what we want. So now that we've balanced the tilt axis, if I undo this and unlock this axis here, you can see that although the camera is balanced on the tilt axis, it's not balanced on this roll axis. It's very much heavy to the right-hand side. So now what we need to do is we need to unlock this latch here, and we need to adjust the left-right position of this arm here. So we're gonna slide this arm across. So I've gone too far that way, so now it's left heavy. Let's go back, and there we go. As you can see, now that's sitting level. So now if we put this camera in any position like so, it's not going to move around. That's perfectly balanced. All right, so the final axis that we need to adjust is this one here, and this is the pan axis. So what this is in relation to is the center point of the camera. Is the camera sitting over the center of gravity of the gimbal? So how we can test that one is if we put the camera at an angle, see how the back swings around in the direction of the tilt? So if I tilt it this way, it's going to do the same thing. That means that the gimbal is back heavy. So it's got too much weight back here. So we're gonna unlock this latch and slide it forward. Let's try again. Okay, see how it's not swinging around anymore? Now that's perfectly balanced. So to summarize, you can now see that our camera is perfectly balanced on the tilt axis, both here on this arm and on the plate of the camera itself. We have balanced our roll axis so that the camera isn't left or right heavy, it's sitting perfectly in the middle, as well as on our pan axis so that it's not heavy on the front or on the back. It's perfectly balanced over the center of gravity of the gimbal. So the last thing that we want to do is to run a balance test and a motor calibration. Now, when I turn this gimbal on, I can pretty much guarantee you what's going to happen. The motors are going to shake and vibrate violently. And the reason for that is the last camera that I had on this gimbal was much heavier than this camera is. And when I calibrated it to that amount of weight, it sets the torque of each motor. So now they're gonna be fighting for a heavier camera where they don't need to. So let me show you an example. Let me fire up the gimbal. Now, as you can hear, that's vibrating quite a bit. And it's actually popped up with a warning on the gimbal that it says, gimbal control poor, do you want to calibrate the gimbal? And I do. Now, there's actually two ways that you can calibrate this particular model. On the RS2, because you have this front-facing screen, you can actually do the auto tune directly on the back of the gimbal. And you do that by clicking on this icon here and then start calibration. And you'll see here, that'll start to now calibrate each of the motors. So each of them is going to shake and it's going to find the right amount of torque for the weight of this camera. And now the calibration is complete. The second way to calibrate it is using the DJI app. And this is the way that you would need to calibrate most gimbals, is through the accompanying phone app. So if we go here on the DJI app, we want to go into motor parameters, and then we want to hit auto tune and then hit OK. And that will again start to calibrate each of those motors. Now, the last thing that we want to do now that our motors have been calibrated is we want to perform a balance test. And this is going to confirm whether we've done a good job in balancing the gimbal. So to do that, out of that menu, and let's go to balance test. Now, to begin a balance test, what you need to do is you need to tilt the gimbal to at least 15 degrees. And it will tell you on the app if you're there, and then you just hit begin test. And now what it's doing is it's just checking each of the motors to see how well this has actually been balanced. And there we have our results. You can see we have an excellent balance on both the tilt, pan, and roll motors. So there you have it, guys. That is how you balance a single-handed gimbal such as the Ronin RS2. Now, one more thing that I did want to address is that, like we mentioned with the Osmo Mobile, some cameras, like the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema cameras, are very left side heavy. And what I found with this particular gimbal is that you actually do need to add some sort of counterweight onto the arm just here in order to balance that gimbal. So that is something that you need to consider with this style of gimbal as well. So here you can see for the Blackmagic Pocket 4K, I've had to add this small nano clamp as a bit of a counterweight, but you can actually get purpose-built counterweights to clamp onto the side of these arms. Again, I'll put links down in the description. So there you have it, guys. That is my tutorial on how to balance two different types of gimbals. If you found this video useful, make sure to give it a thumbs up to let me know. And if you have any questions at all, let me know down in the comments below. And if you'd like to see more content just like this, make sure to hit subscribe so that you never miss out on new videos. Thanks for watching, guys, and we'll see you in the next one.